Okay. And welcome you all again. And we are here to discuss the LWVKC positions. Um, and I am here to record, to hit the record button and facilitate as best I can. But the point is really to listen to your thoughts and recommendations and any other ideas you might have. So, if would anyone like to kick it off? Do you come with some thoughts after reading through the positions? Who would like to kick us off? Anyone? Anyone?
Well,
Bueller?
I will at least confess that I didn't read the positions, so I
Okay.
come with not as much knowledge as I might have.
I am going to just put that link here, and as we go along, if you want to, have that open next to you, then then please do so, and you can share your thoughts on the sly. Go to why am I not seeing chat?
Put your cursor all the way down.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
It's nothing's coming up.
no. Oh, oh, yeah, I don't know. I'm blind. I'm just blind. Okay. Go. All right. So I should have labeled it, but that is the list of, please see if that works for you. The list of positions.
Oh my goodness.
So we have, I kind of wrote out, we have positions on election worker intimidation to protect workers, our positions about law enforcement and their role in protection, election challengers, that it sounds like we want any election challengers to be eligible voters in the jurisdiction where they're coming up with challenges, as opposed to being outside of the region and coming in and bringing up, issues. Voter intimidation at the polls, early voting position, education, city positions, on fair housing, on the city mayor, on the charter, tax increment financing, social policy, on basic needs, on living wage, on paid leave, on housing, finance, natural resources, water. Uh, there are positions for Independence, the City of Independence, county positions, and regional positions.
Judy, and just FYI, I don't know if other people had this problem. I clicked on the link
Mhm.
and I got a thing that said access was denied because
Oh,
whatever the connection was expired at the first of the year. And,
no,
I
well,
didn't get a message like that at all. Mine
really?
went right through.
okay, well, this may have to do with my setup, so
Oh, rats.
that's okay. That's okay. I'm not going to read the positions right now.
Okay. Um, I guess in general, maybe any discussion on um, LWVKC, on our organization, on our league, that you're impressed with, that are hot issues for you personally, that you like the, oh, Greg also got that same message. Maybe I can just send
Are
it
you
in.
saying that's the message when you tried to access our positions, or which link, Elizabeth?
When I clicked on the link that Judy Ann sent, that was the message that I got. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go get my iPad and see if I can get it directly.
Let
Don't.
me try
I'll be right back.
another link. So, um,
But was it the link to get to the positions or the link to get to the questions? That's what I'm asking.
this is the link. Did you click on that link, Laura?
I'm looking at Anne's large email that gives all 4 of the meetings. And there's other links for the discussion questions, for Saturday's planning meeting, and for the league positions.
Yeah, let me send this link. This is to the page where you can click yourself on, it says league positions on that page. I just thought I would expedite it and go directly to that link, but
Yeah,
apparently you need to
and
click it from that page.
and that link took me right to the positions, but I am logged in on the website, and that may be,
Okay, so
maybe you need to be
Oh.
logged in.
So Greg, that is the same link I just posted. So perfect. That should work from Anne's email. And yeah, I guess you need that link first.
on the website, where will I find it?
If you click on the link I just posted, Elizabeth, I think that should work. Also, Greg posted it. And then when you get to that page, you'll see league positions and click there.
Yeah.
This worked for me. Okay. Thank you, Greg. Okay, there's the site. Okay,
Now you'll see a button that says league positions on that page on the right-hand side.
yeah, but what I'd like to do is pull it up on my iPad, and when I just go to the league website, hang on, I just don't see that. Is there another thing I have to go through to get to this page? League of Women Voters positions.
It's under our work,
Our work, okay.
and then go down to league positions.
Positions, okay. And then LWVKC positions, okay.
Mhm.
I've got it now.
See, the first one I posted was the link to this page, thinking it would just go there, but it did not.
Okay.
Okay, great. So really our first question is about what areas are the first question really was, what are the 3 areas LWVKC should focus on? So is there something, what is important to you? And Laura, yes, please. Thanks.
Mis and or disinformation. I'm not sure how we want to term it. I think that is the top priority, because I think that's why why we are where we are right now with our latest elections. I think that is huge.
That is
And
exactly what I was gonna say.
yeah, and
Yep.
especially with we look at what's happening in social media with the TikTok ban, and there are a number of people who that's how they got their news. So I think, and I would call it disinformation, because they're really not getting factual information. It's to distract people from what's really happening.
Mhm.
And Greg can tell you that he's got a committee working on that issue right now.
Mhm.
And this is just an aside, but as long as I have Judy Ann and Joyce right next to each other on my screen, I was going to say, Joyce also is coordinating our monthly meetings. And I was going to suggest that you involve Judy Ann in a program about social media. Social media 101. I mean, because there are some people who are facile with social media in the league, and some who are really not and are just mystified. And I think that would be extremely helpful, but also just to your point, Laura, that because I agree completely. This is such an area that needs to be attended to and exposed and educated on. And Greg's committee is working on an education program to show people how to validate what they see, because we are just flooded with the little headline, the little thing that pops up in your phone, the little thing that comes up here and there and there. And it's like, I don't have the time to investigate all of these things. So I
And
think
yeah,
to our point, focusing on educating voters about and making sure we know what we mean by misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah.
Disinformation is deliberate attempt to deceive. Misinformation is misspeaking or not really quite having your facts right or something like that. And I know nobody on this screen ever has that happen to them.
uh-huh.
Um,
And just focusing on the fact that we have a social media platform that has said we're not fact checking anymore. I mean, that should have been huge alarm bells for the public. Oh, there was fact checking, even if it's that point of view. Oh, there was fact checking, because I really think that's probably the reaction of a lot of the electorate, is they didn't even realize that fact checking was happening. And so to say that it's now we're not doing it anymore, I think is maybe even a good stepping off point. What does it mean when a major social media platform says they're not going to fact check anymore? What does that mean? Yeah.
No, I wanted to jump in to just say I'm just thrilled to hear that you guys are thinking that's the number one issue. I am actually new to the league, and I was curious about what everybody was thinking, and also curious about the process. And frankly, the reason why I joined the league was because I was just going crazy about the whole election cycle. I joined in the middle of the summer, and all the information and misinformation and all that. So I'm tickled to death. And in the last, few days, as I've been, or week or so since the meeting with Anne, I guess a week ago Saturday, all I've been able to think about is voter education. And I kind of look at the voters in kind of three segments. There's the informed, there's the uninformed, and the misinformed. And the informed and the uninformed are the ones that the league has been focused on up to date. If you're informed, you need to continue to get the information that's provided to stay informed. And the uninformed, we're bringing them into the informed realm, by all of the voter ed material, Vote 411, GOTV, all that stuff. And so then I focus completely on the misinformed and thinking about, my whole thought process on why I think it's important, but I don't think I need to say anything there because I think we're all in agreement on the importance of it. And the things that kind of came to mind for me to do would be to kind of first come up with, a plan on how we really want to tackle this. A strategic plan. In my previous life, I was used to working with, a very clear vision and a mission. And so not that, some of it might be pie in the sky. And I know resources are always very limited in a volunteer world. But, I feel like, we could kind of come up with what we really think would be ideal. And kind of the main categories that I've been coming up with are the increased visibility, certainly with, social media and any other way, maybe giving its own page on the website. I mean, there's tons and tons of things we could do there to increase the visibility and then increase the communication. And I think about, the existing structure of the League of Women Voters at the local and the national and the state levels, and all the outreach that's done. And, I know in the, in the leagues, on the US site, and they were talking about like 9 million people were reached and just an incredible amount of voters were reached. And what if each one of those interactions also included a little knock about about media literacy, media and news literacy. And then in addition to just visibility and communication, just new types of content. Anything from like what somebody was just saying, was it Laura just a few minutes ago about, oh, I'm drawing a blank. Any kind of information like asking parents to contact their schools for education, like, let's get this, what can people do to educate themselves? We have this wonderful start on these things that Greg has put together with the team. I mean, they're fabulous. And, if we had that plus like a resource where people could go if they wanted to do additional self-study, where you could learn as little or as much as you wanted, and we could kind of help facilitate that. And, touching on some of the current stuff, like, how do you think about AI, and even tying in misinformation about money in politics, which is another a league concern. And then also, what kind of partnerships we could get into that would help us increase our visibility. And all of that, there's a lot there, and I know, some of that's kind of pie in the sky, and it would take, a long time maybe to do all of that. But if we could figure out kind of where to start on the additional information we want to provide, that might be good. And then as far as, just let me throw in one more thing, or a couple more things on what we would like to see the Missouri League do is, once we kind of have really good information to share, I would love to see us advocate, or the state advocate, for education in schools on that. So it's all about our future voters. And, we've, and frankly, the last thing is, I was tickled to death when I went through the US, the new issues document. I was tickled to death to see their new position on, it's called The Decline of Local News and Its Impact on Democracy. I was just tickled to death. I love, there's a couple of sentences in here. The league also believes media literacy and news education, including support for journalism students, are essential. These opportunities should be expanded in schools and throughout communities. And it's like, wow. I mean, we already had an amazing start on that with the voter ed group, but it feels like a license to do even more. So those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you for those. Those are great thoughts. And I don't think they're all pie in the sky, or I don't know any of them. I didn't hear anything. I think they're all very practical and very doable. And I know some of them have been on my mind too.
Yes.
A lot of them. And Greg
Yes.
promised you a call like a month ago or two. So maybe we can discuss some of that. But that's fantastic, Alice. And thank you.
Thank
Laura.
you.
Yeah, those are really good thoughts, Alice. And I love the idea of coming up with, or trying to work with different school districts on maybe even a program. We used to go into the schools and show them how their vote counts, and it was a really good program, and it really hit home with the kids. It was using colors instead of talking about political parties. I put a link in the chat and it goes to the League US Misinformation and Disinformation page. And there's a AI's impact on election mis and disinformation, and there's a Democracy Truth Project and a guide to mis and disinformation, a blog. And
Wow.
so I'm pretty sure we've got to start. I also think that we shouldn't try and reinvent the wheel. And if League US is actually working on projects with this, do they
Mhm.
have a program? Do they know of other leagues that have gone, that have partnered with school districts and let league members come in and do programs with civics classes or social studies classes? So I think
Mhm.
there's probably some stuff out there
Yeah.
already.
I was in looking at the last paragraph on in their position. It said the national office will track the league's engagement and work around this issue for the next biennium. And like, how do we find out what they're, to what you said, Laura, how do we find out what they're doing other than whatever they present on their website? I mean, is that the extent of our ability to learn those things, or do we have other ways?
We can also ping them. I mean, in this era, we can ask them.
Oh,
So,
what a novel idea.
so we could email, you could contact on social media, um, any of those ways. But that's great. And I feel like I did hear about a program, and I was just looking for it and I'm not finding it immediately, but that there was an education program, curriculum that they had uh, created that we were thinking of plugging into, and things got busy.
Greg
Uh,
has his hand up and maybe he's got the answer to that. Who knows?
Great. Yep. Yeah, Greg, please.
So I kind of took the question a different way, but I'm going to try to find a way to reconcile how I interpreted the question with all the great ideas that have been enunciated here. So I thought, well, what are the three most important things? And I said, um, voter registration, voter education, and legislative action. And so let me kind of explain why on each of those. First of all, voter registration is just it's a core mission that we do, but it's our face in the community. And when I've been at City Market tabling, sometimes people will say, "Oh yeah, I know who you guys are. You're the League of Women Voters. You guys register people to vote." And I think if people say that, they get what we do, and that's a good thing. And so that's number one. A legislative action, that legislative action committee, the reason I like what that committee does is it's not just about whether or not we have an impact on whether or not legislation actually passes. All the people that engage in that process, they come out of every legislative session smarter about how our government works and smarter about legislation. And legislation moves very slowly, but they also come out of every session with a dose of realism, but that realism doesn't mean that they just focus on whatever can pass. Okay. And I think in other words, and I'll give you an example. Riva does a great job with firearms legislation. And in Missouri, this is a very red state, but she's up to date on all of the different proposals that are coming up. And she's also very up to date on who our partners are on that. And in other words, she's the big frustration with a lot of voters or the discouragement that a lot of voters encounter is that they feel powerless and unable to act. And you know something? If you are alone, you probably are. Okay. But if you are connected with other people in an organization, and if your organization is connected to other organizations, well, guess what? You do have a whole lot more power than if you were just out there on your own. And that's my example with Riva. Okay. And so with voter education, um, there's just so much that uh, has to be done that's out there. Um, I'm really happy to hear everybody talk about the importance of media literacy, and because that's where our focus has been. We're in this, Judy and Joyce, we're in a 2 month reading period on it, and something there's an abundance of stuff out there that talks about um, what people ought to do. But there's very little out there on actually getting people to walk through the actual clicks that you've got to make on your machine to really do this stuff.
Right.
And that's where we're doing a lot of work right now. But some of the surprises that have come up is there's for me there's two surprises. One of them is that I keep hearing a lot of people who are actually um, in this environment withdrawing from the media because they're afraid of it. And another thing you hear of is people are reluctant to move around in the internet beyond their corners of comfort because they're afraid of what might be out there. And then the third thing that's very similar to that is this tendency for people to gravitate toward their corner of self-belief. Okay, which so this theme is so huge. So going back to what we're trying to do here today, um, there's I think a lot of opportunity for other parts of the organization to be involved in this whole thing. For example, Judy and you and I, a lot of times we work on the same thing, but we attack a theme in a different way. Okay. And we all have, I mean, it's kind of like having a farm. I may be doing wheat, but Judy Ann, you might be doing grapefruit. And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean we're duplicating effort, but the theme is so big. And for example, Joyce, since you are doing the meetings, I think finding people that can talk to league members about either social media or actually, one thing that really popped up to me is the whole issue of, keeping yourself safe on the internet. Because if you empower people to go out, then they are going to be better at this whole work of understanding and being able to to explore other points of view and to fact check other stuff. If people are afraid of the internet, then they're not going to venture out and qualify stuff. If people are afraid of the internet, they're not going to expose themselves to alternative points of view. And it's like this. If we say, for example, Laura, you mentioned, we are where we are because in this latest election because of the way people are using social media and the way people are using this. Well, I know I have the same thought, And then I have to catch myself because I think, I criticize people for only watching Fox News, but all of my sources of information generally are left of center. So, I kind of forced myself to find a right of center view. But this is the point. There are so many habits and there's so much that's going on. So again, to get back to what everybody else has said, Elizabeth's suggestion about meetings, I think that, and content for meetings, topics for meetings, that if we start with our own membership, then our own membership becomes more empowered and is better able to do it. The idea, Judy Ann, of, this whole, it's not just voter education that works on this theme, but others can. And so that's how I think about it. Anyway, I'm really happy that everybody is interested in this theme.
Hmm.
Thank you, Greg. Laura?
Yeah, and to build on that, when we started with working on this disinformation, several of us had to tell Greg that we were like, well, I didn't want to put this topic into the social media platform I was using because I was afraid of what would come up, and then that of other things that would then be generated onto what I was seeing, because that's how I view the internet, is that once you go down that rabbit hole, you start getting stuff splashed at you or thrown at you, and it's hard to stop that. And so I really didn't want to do a search on my social media platforms. I did my search through what I hoped were sources of information that would come up with factual ways to work through mis and disinformation. And I do think that if we do at minimum one, maybe several meetings on how to deal with social media, how to deal with mis and disinformation, et cetera, those meetings will then get put on our YouTube channel, which means we will reach many other people. And I think that's where our influence gets out into the community. And the other idea too, Greg, of what you thought were the three most important, I think our legislative action committee should be a huge focus, because I've read several things that said, you can't just jump in when there are national elections, that really so much of what happens in our lives is local. And we really need to start focusing on our local communities, because that does work its way to the top, whereas from the top doesn't necessarily work its way down into our communities. There was a program, a Friday night program that Dave and I were watching, and one of the panelists said something about, well, we don't need um, our state focused on training police to go after immigrants. What we need to be calling our governor and saying, hey, you've got control of our police force. And so here's what we need. Why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? Because if you don't want to deal with it, you need to give the control back to our city so we can deal with our issues that we need our police to be working on. And sure enough, that's our community. So making our voices heard and following that legislation that's happening in our state that trickles down to our community is so important. Greg already brought up that there's going to be I'm saying this wrong, Greg, not a bond issue, but there's going to be a ballot measure in the April election. And so because it's only one measure, my response was, well, let's get working on creating a YouTube that gives the information the way we always do, with pros and cons and ballot measure language. And let's maybe do one webinar or Zoom, but otherwise, let's get it out on our YouTube platform and let's maybe have it in the crawl. Here's what's coming up on the April election so that when people go to our public page, they can click on it and get informed. I think our website is it's probably one of our best outreach and best sources of information. I'm not sure we realize how effective our website is and how many people go to it because, oh, the League of Women Voters, yeah, they do stuff about voting. We have a lot of members who have been using our website before they even became members.
Great. Okay, this is fantastic. Great discussion. I'm going to move to our next big question. Let's see. At the May meeting, will you vote to affirm the current LWVKC positions? If not, is this because you think we need an additional position? Are you interested in heading up an ad hoc committee to do a study with the goal of adding on another LWVKC position, and for which topic? So basically, if you run down the list, are the things that you know are our positions and our missions. Are you on board with those? Are there any that you have a problem with that you wouldn't want to vote for? And for us to have as a position for the next couple of years? And is there something missing so that you would like to add as a position? And I mean, I'll throw this out. Maybe one thing, I don't know that we have a direct position on social media. I don't know. Greg, do we? I mean, maybe there's something about disinformation we want to confirm through a position. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. And part of one of the things that keeps coming up is, well, actually, if you think about it, Alex, you probably found it. There was this point about I haven't seen it, but Alex, you said there was a position on the decline, either the decline of local news. What was that?
Is it a position or a blog post? Decline of local
Oh,
news.
there is a position. Alice held it up. It says the decline of local news. I think that would be a good start.
Is that
And
a US position?
it's
Alice?
Is
it's
it
a
a
U
position or
Okay,
an article?
thanks.
yeah, it's a
Okay.
U.S. position.
Okay.
And
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry.
yeah, it's a U.S. position. And so here's the relevance of that, Julianne. I don't think we necessarily have to do a study on that, but I do think this is one of those things that we should tap into in terms of this bigger thing and at our meetings. And so this is actually something we touch base on from time to time. So Joyce and Judy Ann, what I'll share here is that in a lot of the materials that we've been reviewing, there's two things that come up. One is, well, what are the standards of journalism? And a lot of these places, including some of the sources that we rely on a lot, use that as a touchstone for, how people ought to be dealing with news. And it's kind of like the 7 standards of journalism. And that includes things like non-bias, things like showing your sources, all of that stuff. Okay. Well, you could have done that presentation in 1980. Okay. Now you do it today, and it's completely different because most people are getting their news from places that neither post or adhere to journalistic standards we had in the 1980s. Okay. The other thing is that one of the things that came up when we started this work was in the group, there was this element of self-doubt. Okay. And of course, this organization, um, we're mature, to use the nice word. Okay. But the question was, how in the world, what in the world do we have to contribute here? Well, what we have to contribute is that we remember a world in which our news came from media outlets that upheld journalistic standards. Okay. And most people, and where everybody got their news from places where there were journalistic standards. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you go there, it's almost like some of the work that we as an organization can do is to remind people of what those standards are, and somehow or another, because if we don't, in other words, if you think about it generationally, 20 years from now, if nobody remembers the world in which news came from sources of journalistic standards, then certainly we're in trouble, or certainly the world will be in more trouble. So the position, Judy, to connect to the question you wrote, that's the lead position. I don't remember it came from, it's brand new, but yeah. So the question, it's one thing to do a study. It's another thing to use the stuff from the study. And I'll give you an example. If we had Steve Kraske, okay, I'm just throwing that out, giving a presentation to us, and not only a presentation, but at a meeting where there is an element of dialogue, okay? Because this is another theme here. Then in that dialogue, our membership becomes more confident. And that's one of the things we have to do is we have to reassure our membership that they have something to, let's say, bring to our world. And I think I'm just surprised that, in this organization where there are so many talented people, you often hear people say, the world is moving too fast for me. I don't know what I have to bring, from people of great talent. Okay. So the other thing, so going back to the Steve Kraske example, and for those of you that don't know Steve Kraske, the reason I cite him is that not only does he have his radio show, which I like, but he came out of the Star, and he was the journalist at the Star in the days when the Star really and truly did journalism. I'm not saying that today they're much more resource constrained. Okay. But anyway, Steve gets it. Steve understands it. He teaches a journalism class at UMKC. He has standing.
Perfect.
Okay. One other point here is that when I've done the tabling at City Market, I never am fired up when I wake up on Saturday morning, and I always say, why am I doing this? Do I need another hole in my head? Is it okay? Do I have volunteeritis? Okay. And something, I might come back from it, and numbers wise, it just doesn't hack it, because I always think, well, to have an impact, you need to think about 50, 100, and 1,000. And I do not talk to 50 people. I might talk to 12. Okay. But I don't just the communication isn't just one way. I hear a lot when I'm tabling. Okay. And we learn a lot when we listen to people. And a lot of times I hear stuff that I don't want to hear. Okay. Or I see people with t-shirts that say things like, you control your kids and I'll control my guns, that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you get out of your cocoon. Okay. But my point is that when we have conversations, and that's not a conversation, but I have had good conversations at City Market. It only helps us learn how to communicate better. If we have better conversations, our third conversation is always better than our first. Our seventh conversation is always better than our third. And somehow or another, and this again gets back to Joyce at the meetings, but somehow or another, if we have meetings, making sure we have space where people can talk. And the other thing is maybe if we have meetings that are open to some meetings, not all, but some that are open to the public. Um, some of our best meetings when we did the ballot, in fact, the meeting that I enjoyed the most was there were two, the ballot measures meeting with the AAUW.
Yeah.
It was a great group, and
Up at North
it wasn't us,
KC.
but
Yeah.
they were. It was like having dinner with cousins. Okay, and then there was this event. You were there, Laura, when we
Yep.
were at the what is that it's at Third Prospect, it starts with the B, that library,
Oh, the Bluford.
Blueford Library. It was a very small
Yeah.
group,
One
but
of our
that
best presentations. Yeah.
exactly. But what happened was we made our presentation. We were in the presentation, and this group of 10 people, we're not talking about big
Mhm.
numbers, but this group of 10 people, they began to talk about stuff between each other. There was one conversation going on
Yes.
between the audience members. And I'll tell you, I changed how I was going to vote on one of the ballot measures because of that conversation. Okay. So the point here is that our meetings, I think it can be richer if there are conversations, and they can be richer if we actually, not all, but some, include the community. Okay. And because we can learn a lot. So that's
Yeah.
just, I guess that's, you kind of pulled a string there and Alice, thank you for having found that League of Women Voters US position. And
I put the link to it in the chat too.
Yeah, if I can, you might be stretching my talents here a little bit.
What's that?
That would be great.
No,
And what
I
happened
put
at
that-
Bluford is
I
we
put that.
heard from the community.
mhm.
We
I
heard people talk about their everyday concerns. That's why the Bluford presentation was so good, because they were talking about what was important to them and what and how it affected them and their community. And that's when the three of us who were there, who at first we could see, we were like, okay, 10 people. And then it became one of the, because of the feedback. And you saw how people really thought about what they were voting on and how it was going to affect them and their community.
They
And
were
that
10
is,
people,
yeah,
10 people
it was,
that came to be
yeah,
engaged. They were just, and they were power um, voters.
Fantastic. Well, I know the one at the Plaza Library was so great. I changed, and that's from y'all, but
Mm.
changed some thoughts on how I was voting. But Alice, it looks like you're looking for that link. I put the link in the chat. It's there.
Oh, okay, because I just got
Yeah,
There we
the
go.
whole, did you put the whole issues
check it out
document?
and see if that's correct or if there's something else you found that should be there.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, is it? Ah,
Let's see.
Yeah,
I'm waiting
I
for
was able to pull it up.
Okay.
It's in yeah, it's a page all to itself. Thank you,
It's
Judy Ann.
on, yeah, page 79. Wait a second.
Page 79. Oh, interesting. I think, yeah, I just pulled up the one page.
Yeah. Decline of local news and its impact on democracy.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is a brand new position.
Yeah, it's
Wow,
2024. So
yeah,
it
2024.
is.
that's
Yeah,
really,
and okay, here we go.
Wow.
Could I
oh,
ask Greg a question for
Yes.
clarity?
geez.
Are you suggesting that along with our membership meetings, our monthly meetings, that maybe we do something every couple months or whatever that's a public meeting?
Yeah, I
That
think
would be
All
a
of our
forum?
meetings public except for our planning meeting.
but
Oh,
I
I believe so, but I think the format he's talking about is different.
right. I think
Okay.
that when I say public, I mean intentionally public, where we would say, hey, you know, this meeting isn't just for league members. This meeting is for the community. And I'll give you an example. What if we were fortunate enough to get Steve Kraske to talk about something?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I would advocate for, let's say, an in-person meeting, okay, for that. And in a space where we can accommodate maybe 40 people. And then we kind of say, well, you know, let's for example, let's partner with the AAUW on that. Okay. And then not only that, but we reach out to all of those people. Like for example, there's that media cooperative. Okay. That all the people that Ann works with. And I know that Corinne, we all have these partnerships. And so to the extent that we can do something like that, um, then you get then you reach out to the community, you reach out to people who can build an audience, and then there are all of these side conversations that happen after the meeting. And this is one of those things that it's very difficult to do in a Zoom meeting. But if you have an in-person meeting, you have all of these things happen. Elizabeth, remember when there was the Matt Beat presentation at the Plaza Library, that there were all of these people that were moving around and talking to different people. And I still remember people, you know, coming up to me. Actually, they weren't coming up to me, they were coming up to the person I was asking questions to. And it was I got information that there was no way in the world I would have been able to get to online from this circle of 7 people that was randomly created. It was like kinetics. It's Joyce, this is what you're trying to do when you have an in-person meeting. Kinetics is all about how molecules bounce around. And if they bounce around fast enough, it's kind of like you turn on a neon light. Well, that thing takes a while to turn on, but it's because of the kinetics. And as after things start bouncing around fast enough, the light goes on. Well, that's what we're trying to do.
That's great.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you were talking about a separate type of meeting. Okay,
Yeah, you know, I agree. Joyce, I'm glad you asked that question, and the answer is yes.
yes.
It's a separate meeting. It's a different kind of meeting, and it's a meeting that we kind of carve out as saying we aren't going to try to connect with the community at every meeting, but um, this is Laura and Elizabeth. This would be very similar to an AAUW type meeting that we had, you know, when we were doing the ballot measures, where we connect with another group and the other group and us, we build an audience and we have a program of interest. And it's not just us.
Yeah. And that's one reason that we've created that whole business about connections with other groups, and at what level, because that provides us a smorgasbord of groups we could connect with and say, would you like to work with us on a meeting like this? Or we and the AAUW are going to have a meeting about this. We'd love it if your members could attend. So that, building an audience in that way. Judy Ann wants to get us back on track.
Well, no, and one just clarification. It is, Greg, are you saying that this is a different kind of meeting that would occur in place of a monthly meeting, as a monthly meeting, but it would be for the public? So it's not, a 13th or 14th meeting for Joyce to put
Right.
together, but one of the
I
12.
was going to say the same thing.
I think we have the bandwidth to do that because, that's a good, let's put it this way. You have a good question, Judy, and it's something that the organization should talk about. But I would say you have it as a meeting because culturally,
Mhm.
I think that should become part of what we do.
Yeah.
Culturally, I think we should think about ourselves as not always just doing stuff in our group. I think that culturally, we need to have in our DNA uh, touching the community, and no, not just touching, just having conversations with the community. And it puts us in a position where at our meeting we are able to listen to other points of view. And listen not only from somebody that's up at a podium, but other people who, as Elizabeth talked about, one of the qualifiers is with organizations that we have qualified and who are partner organizations. I mean, we've got we have a foundation, and I think we probably have the bandwidth to do one or two of these, but probably in 2026 we 2025, 26, we could probably do one. It'll take some planning, but I think it's definitely thinking about.
Greg, I just want to disagree with you a little bit that this is the fallow year. This is no big national election year. And I would think that rather than waiting until 2026, think about doing something or some things this year. People are still interested, but there's not, nobody's running for anything. This whole thing that'll be on the city ballot in April is just a re-up on a sales tax for the police. It's like, don't quote me, but it's not a big deal.
There might be some issues this year, though, that, for instance, Amendment 3, that might turn into a battle again this year. So that might be something that could be organizations coming together to educate the public.
Yeah, and really just educating the public rather than advocating.
Yeah.
Very, very much like what the voter education committee does.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I appreciate what you said there, and let me just say I stand corrected. It just is hard for me to fathom being in 2026, but that's our world. But you're right, it's like we probably ought to be thinking about, late 2025, very early, at latest, very early 2026, because when we get into the summer of 2026, it will be too late. It'll just be too much clutter.
I do want to mention we have 1 minute to the top of the hour. Is there anything else we want to say? Or I want to really respect everybody's time as a hard stop, but if people can stay, they can go over. Elizabeth, yes.
Before the meeting ended, my one response to these questions is I would like to see us be very judicious about where we spend our energy on positions. I am not at all sure why the league should have a position on TIF, for instance. It doesn't have anything to do with voting. It's important for the community, and we could get educated about it, but why we would need to have a position escapes me. And I haven't looked through the rest of these positions to see, but I would like to see us stay in our whatever
Lane?
it is, wheelhouse. Lane, yes, thank you,
Mhm.
Joyce. One of the problems that we run into with getting more conservative candidates to come to the forums is the reputation is the league is not just left of center, but very left of center.
Mm.
And they don't see that it's in their interest to come and participate, rather than we are a non-partisan organization that supports democracy and voting. And that's where we are. And anyhow, I'll shut up.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. That's great. Anyone else? Oh,
And
Alice.
I was just gonna say that would be great if we could get rid of one and replace it with expansion of voter education.
Yeah, I mean, that's tremendously important, and we could
Yeah.
spend a lot of our time and energy on that.
Mhm.
And that
And-
would be.
And I definitely would like to be part of that. So
Be careful what you wish for.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. I've been warned. And there are moments where I pay attention to my warning and moments where I don't. So we'll see.
Participating in the league can be tremendously rewarding.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, Elizabeth, that hopefully the reason people choose to be in the league is because they want to do something that is of importance, that is gonna be a legacy of sorts that you're trying to show. Remember Gina Meyer standing up at the event we had at the election celebration event and just saying, she goes, I am so proud to be a part of the league. I tell people all the time that I'm in the League of Women Voters. And so hopefully that is the reputation we have, that we do have a reputation, and Elizabeth's right. We need to guard it. But the other end of that is that we have some positions that reflect the majority of the American populace as far as what they believe, and so be it.
Okay. Any last words? Any other thoughts?
Great job, Judy Ann.
Yes,
Well,
thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all did it.
Maiden voyage for these four sessions. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for showing up and discussing. I think it was great, great thoughts.
Judy
And-
Ann, what did we end up with for question 1 as our 3 areas?
Well, let's see.
Obviously, the myths and disinformation were at the top of most of our minds.
Right, the misinformation. And Greg, you mentioned voter registration, voter education, and legislative action.
Mhm.
The areas. So any other areas anybody wants to
It
suggest?
sounded to me like we all said voter education was
Mhm.
Mhm.
public education too, not just voter for what Greg's
Yeah.
idea was.
Yeah,
And I think voter education goes hand in hand with that legislative action.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, if you don't know what decisions are being made for your state, then you're not an educated voter.
That's right.
So I think those are just totally intertwined.
Yeah, agreed.
And Judy Ann, I want to make one other comment, because this is something that's been on my mind, and I mean this very seriously. I think somebody, and we could do it, needs to come up with 2 emojis, 2 new emojis that people can instantly put onto social media communication.
Mhm.
One of which is, I don't think this is right, misinformation. And 2, this is intended to be deceptive. And I don't know what those could be, because my mind doesn't work that way, but I think social media might be able to come up, or we could
Ooh,
have a
I love that.
contest or something like that, because it's the whole fire hose number.
Yeah.
The serious public need to have an instantaneous response that says the polite word of bullshit. And it shouldn't have anything to do with bulls
Yeah.
but it should just be wrong.
Yeah, there are some emojis out there that would indicate.
Yes, but those
Yeah.
of us who would like to maintain our public presentation would prefer something that doesn't have the little poop pile.
Well,
Yeah.
X, I don't know if Musk has taken that away. I haven't seen it in a little while, but X did have, and Twitter had a community alert basically thing that you could dispute a tweet. And it would
Ah.
say underneath, this is a disputed tweet, this is the truth, blah, blah, blah. So, but
Yeah,
that's
well,
as great.
we know how well that's working.
Yeah, I will
Like-
say, I
Yeah.
did one, and I'm sorry, we're over time now, but yeah, no, one of my alarms is that someone I know who works in social media, who's very intelligent, who's a mom of a little kid, and is a writer. We've talked, and she brought up some really serious disinformation she saw, but I saw blah, blah, blah. How do I find out if it's okay? It's like, oh my gosh, you're intelligent. You're a writer. You're in social media. You're, native to these platforms. Why are you asking, how do I find out if this is true or not? It's like,
Mm.
it's not hard. Especially if you have that background. So it really is something I think is super important too. And it's a good point, Elizabeth, in having some more and more triggers that alert us immediately to truth or not, or lies. So, yeah. Thank you again so much. Appreciate it. Anne will be watching this. Hi, Anne.
Hi.
Gleaning all the wisdom and your opinions and great advice and thoughts. So, have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon, I hope.
Thanks.
Okay, stay warm, everybody.
Oh,
Thanks.
God.
You bet.
Bye-bye.